We'll call our meeting to order, and the first thing we'll do is roll call. Manager Waller.
Present.
Manager Wynant.
Here.
Manager Bradley.
Here.
Manager Wagaman.
Here.
And Manager Preiner here. Next thing we'll do is ask anybody that is out in the audience to please identify yourself for the records. Anybody out in the audience?
Looks like
This is Pete.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Pete Moreau from Somatech.
Okay, thank you. And the rest is all staff, so we'll move ahead with the agenda. Anybody like, oh, we need a vote on the roll call.
Really?
We had it, we're all present. Setting the agenda, anybody like to add or subtract from the agenda today?
President Preiner, staff have no adjustments.
Okay, then we'll need a motion.
Madam President, I move to accept the agenda as provided. Second.
We need, yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Will be a roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
Manager Preiner, yes, passes. Approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the minutes of Wednesday, January 27th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Be a roll call. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
Manager Preiner, yes. Motion passes. Go ahead. Approval of the minutes for January 27th workshop and retreat.
Madam President, I'll move the 27th morning workshop. I was not present at the afternoon one, so.
Okay. I don't think we have to. Go ahead.
I'll second that.
We didn't have a workshop? No.
No, we had a board meeting.
We had the retreat.
Yeah.
We had the board meeting and retreat.
Oh, and the
Yep.
retreat. That's not
So-
okay.
So let's
Let's back
let's
up.
bifurcate them.
You want
Yep.
me to change it?
No, it was a
Well,
board meeting in the minute.
We already-
Oh, board meeting, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was a board meeting.
And we already did
Yeah.
that. Okay.
President Preiner,
Yep.
so we had a motion and a second for the January 27th workshop retreat of the afternoon. I would like to suggest an adjustment to the minutes. I wrote the minutes, but I think to add some clarity on line 11.
Okay.
It would be good, you'll see the tail of the sentence there, and challenges before it, comma, such as, semicolon, and then just bullet each of the sentences that follow. That meeting was facilitated by Erica Garms, and I think that better reflects the work that she did with the board and staff.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
Certainly. Page 13 of the packet, line 11 of the minutes. The line starts, and challenges before it. Eliminate the period, comma is added, and then the words such as, semicolon, and the sentences that follow, each one would be an individual bullet.
Thank you.
Okay. John said he would do the workshop, but that wasn't the whole thing. So do we want to just,
No,
what do you want?
I'm going to retract my motion here. It's okay with Mike?
Certainly.
Okay,
So you want to do this in 2 steps or 1 step?
let's just do this in 2 steps.
There's
So you, President
we had a
Preiner,
board meeting on the
We already
morning.
did the board meeting.
Right, but the 27th, is that a workshop or a workshop / retreat I wasn't present for it, so I'll retract. I was just making a motion to have it go on.
Okay,
So someone else could make that motion because they were present.
Madam President, I move the minutes as amended, proposed by Nick Tomzak for the workshop retreat on January 27th, 2021.
thank you.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. Manager Waller?
I was not present, so I abstained from voting on it.
Okay. Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wageman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Okay, we got through that. Open mic. Anybody in the audience that'd like to speak to anything that isn't on the agenda today? Anybody out there? Okay, then we are going to recess our meeting and convene our public hearing. Bear with me, I have some reading to do. Welcome everyone to the public hearing and the petition of the City of Roseville to transfer portions of Ramsey County Ditch 4 to the city for future management. The portions of County Ditch 4 proposed to be transferred lay in the city limits and include the main channel of County Ditch 4 south of Terrace Drive and the entirety of Lateral 1. The location and configuration of these portions of County Ditch 4 will be reviewed during our engineer's presentation later in the hearing. For this hearing, the Watershed District Board of Managers is seated as the drainage authority for County Ditch 4. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D-021, meetings of the Board of Managers are currently being convened remotely by video teleconference. Notice was previously provided with instructions on how to participate in today's hearing. I ask that those of you in attendance remotely mute your microphones until it is your turn to speak. The purpose of the hearing is to receive comments from the public on the petition in order to inform the board of the public's concerns. Our decision on petition is based on the following standards found in Minnesota Statute Section 103E812. If the board determines that the storm, surface, or floodwaters along the drainage system can be better managed by the city under its existing authorities, the board shall authorize a transfer of portions of the drainage systems as petitioned. To facilitate comments at today's hearings, notice the time and location of the hearing was mailed to the petitioner, owners of the property, political subdivisions likely to be affected by the proposed action. The board received a petition from the City of Roseville to transfer portions of County Ditch 4 as previously indicated. The city possesses lawful authority to manage stormwater within its boundary and to construct, operate, and maintain stormwater infrastructure. If transferred, future operation, maintenance, reconstruction, and relocation of the main channel of County Ditch 4 and Lateral 1 will fall under the city's stormwater and facilities management authority. However, under the terms of the transfer and by the operational law, the city must maintain the efficiency of the current system, even if the system is modified by the city in the future. The board accepted the petition under statute section 103E812 and appointed Houston Engineering to review the proposed transfer of the portion of the main channel of County Ditch 4 south of Terrace Drive and the entirety of Lateral 1 to the City of Roseville as a water management authority, and to prepare a report that recommended for the board's review and consideration. Houston Engineering has completed its work and filed a report with the board. The petition and the engineer's report were made available for review at the district's offices on its websites in advance of the hearing and will be reviewed today. Please note that our proceedings are all recorded. The order of business for this hearing will be as follows. First, the district's engineer will present the engineer's report and recommendation. The engineer may be assisted by our staff or district's legal counsel. Following the engineer's presentation and any comment or questions from the board, I will open the hearing to the public. The board would like to hear public comments and concerns regarding the proposed action. Our decision must be based on legal requirements related to the petition's action, as well as the engineer's report and other evidence presented. During the public hearing, managers may ask questions of the staff or consultants, making presentations or commenters in order to clarify any testimony. In addition, if a member of the public asks a question, the manager believes a response from the district staff or district consultant can be readily resolve the question or enrich the testimony, the manager may ask me to have the appropriate staff member or consultant speak to the question. I will exercise my judgment as to whether to allow the discussion. Managers' expression of their positions and general discussion concerning the subject of the public hearing should be avoided during the public comment portion of this hearing. Board discussion will occur after all the members of the public have had a chance to speak and the public comment period has closed. Board discussion may occur and be concluded at this or at a subsequent meeting as the board decides. Any of the board members wish to offer any further remarks before we begin? Anybody? If not, we'll turn to Mr. Otterness to go with the presentation.
President Preiner,
Yes.
just briefly before Chris gets into his presentation, I was asked by Nick to review in detail the noticing requirements for today's hearing.
Okay.
And for the board and for members of the public that may be following along, this can be found on page 15 of the board's packet. Notice of today's hearing was published in the St. Paul Pioneer Press newspaper on January 20th, 27th, and February 3rd. It was mailed and emailed to the City of Roseville, City of Arden Hills, City of Falcon Heights, Ramsey County, the Ramsey County Highway Engineer, the Ramsey County Soil and Water Conservation District, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, the Board of Water and Soil Resources, the Department of Natural Resources, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers on January 19th, 2021. The district provided postcard notice by mail to the owners of property within the subwatershed of Ramsey County Ditch Number 4 on January 11th, 2021. The district posted notice of the hearing on the district's website and at the district offices commencing on January 19th, 2021, and remaining posted through the date of today's hearing. The district provided email notice according to its email noticing list service to those requesting notice in that form on January 19th, 2021. And the notice was also posted on the City of Roseville's website commencing on January 21st, 2021, and remaining posted through the day of today's hearing. That concludes our review of the noticing requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead with Chris.
Madam President, I have Joe Lewis here today. He'll be doing the presentation as he was the author of the report here.
Okay, very good.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I did share my screen. Hopefully that's coming through. Just let me know if it is not. So what I'm going to do today is just step through the contents of our engineer's report. Once I learn how to advance my slide here. Okay, so the City of Roseville did petition the Watershed District to transfer portions of RCD4 from Rice Creek to the city under 103E Section 812. Those portions, not the whole thing, but those portions requested for transfer include the main trunk south of Terrace Drive, a length of 8,860 feet, and then the entirety of lateral 1. And I'll have a slide here showing the actual physical location and alignment of those segments here on the next slide. Not included in the transfer is a portion downstream of Terrace Drive on the main trunk. The engineer's report did consider the necessity of the transfer for the orderly management of storm, surface, or floodwaters, and also for water quality purposes. Okay, so on the figure, we have the blue line represents the current alignment of RCD4 on the north end at the top of the screen. It begins at Lake Johanna, and that's the main trunk, continues south, and that's the western limb there on the left of the screen. That continues down to just on the south side of Highway 36. The black and blue dash line, that's what's been requested for transfer. So that ends there at Terrace Drive, which is just on the south side of Oasis Pond, which is a district facility. Lateral 1 on the right or east side of the map, that's the entirety is black and blue dash, and that is the portion that's requested for transfer. So within inside of our engineer's report, well, we consider again the management of storm surface and floodwaters and water quality. Specifically for this petition, we've confirmed a couple of things and considered a few things specifically. So that the location of the petition transfer is within inside the City of Roseville, and at the cities and Rice Creek Watershed District roles and experience and objectives are comparable or similar for both the storm sewer system management and also for water quality purposes. And the effect basically becomes the transfer of authority for the portion of Rice Creek, for the portion of RCD4 from Rice Creek's 103E authority to the city's municipal authority. Okay. So another figure here, just to highlight that the entirety of this petition transfer portion is within inside of the city. The one boundary that you can see on this screen at the top, the green dashed line, is the boundary with the city of Arden Hills. So the main trunk, a portion of it does cross the municipal boundary into Arden Hills. That's not the portion requested for transfer here. So the solid, thicker blue line, that's again the portion for transfer, and then the thinner blue line to the north proceeds into Arden Hills, and that is not requested for transfer. The red line you see on the right side of the map, that is the Rice Creek legal boundary. So the lateral one does become close to the legal boundary, but that is not the municipal boundary there. That would be further off the screen to the east. So the entirety of the transferred portion is within inside the city of Roseville. And the northern portion of the main chunk there will continue to be managed by the Watershed District. So now, just to look at the city of Roseville's roles and capabilities in storm sewer system management. So they already own and manage an extensive amount of storm sewer systems, and they're really equipped to periodically inspect those and maintain those with the right equipment, staff, and experience and procedures. So they're capable and knowledgeable with how to manage those storm sewer systems. And as far as Rice Creek's roles and capabilities in storm sewer system management, the Watershed District has, far less lengths of storm sewer system that they have authority over, and therefore a lesser amount of your readily available equipment, experience, and staffing to periodically inspect and promptly address maintenance issues as they arise. And since the majority of the petitioned transfer portion here is within storm sewer, it aligns with a common sense, I guess, principle there. A couple caveats to these petition portions of the system. It's not all entirely storm sewer. The first asterisk there indicates that there's a upcoming project partnership with the city of Roseville to install roughly a half a mile of storm sewer on RCD4 that is currently open channel ditch. That's just north of the Roseville Mall, and that's upcoming here in later in 2021 as far as the installation of that storm sewer system. And then there's 2 stormwater ponds on the alignment of RCD4, and those are currently managed by the city and located on land where the city has a property interest, either ownership or an easement over those stormwater ponds. And then for water quality considerations, the city is subject to a MPDS municipal separate storm sewer system permit, where they must follow some requirements in order to discharge stormwater from a storm sewer system that they own and operate. And those requirements include the limiting of pollutants entering the storm sewer systems. So the city does adhere to comparable objectives to what the Watershed District does in terms of water quality management of stormwater runoff. And the city's obligations and authorities to manage sediment in the existing storm sewer ponds along RCD4 are also in alignment with the Watershed District's objectives of the system as a whole. And finally, the city's objectives for storm sewer, floodwater, and water quality management are equivalent or comparable to Rice Creek Watershed Districts, and the city is better equipped to operate and maintain storm sewer portions of RCD4 compared to the Rice Creek Watershed District. And the transfer is therefore a necessary component of the basic water management project mentioned earlier for the installation of storm sewer. And the engineer recommends that the Watershed District Transfer Authority for these portions of RCD4 to the city. And finally, the Watershed District should transfer easements it holds over these portions of the drainage system to the city to support the city's management of these portions. So that is the review of the engineer's report.
Okay, thank you. Do any board members have questions of staff or consultants at this time? Anybody have any questions? Okay, so we're ready to, oh, go ahead.
President Preiner, this is Nick Tomczak. Just a point of clarification for the record. The one image that I saw for the main trunk, the system does proceed beyond 36, and so this transfer would include the other photo, please, or slide. There you go. So it does continue past on the south, on the right limb, or excuse me, the left limb. See what I'm saying, Chris or Joe? It includes the entirety of the headwaters. Yes, thank you. That location is included in the transfer, correct?
Actually, Nick, I believe that has been abandoned previously. Either
Okay.
abandoned or transferred previously.
Okay.
The part that's south of 36.
Thank you. On our, thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, so we will go ahead to hear members from the public who wish to comment. Before we take public comment by those participating remotely, I ask that any written comments that were submitted to the district be read into the record at this time. So is there anybody that had written in? I'm asking the staff here.
Manager Preiner, this is Kyle, project manager at Rice Creek. To date, there are no written comments, substantive comments that are to be read into the record. To date, I received 2 phone calls and 1 email just simply asking for more information.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. So members of the public participating remotely are asked to identify themselves before the hearing. We will recognize from the list of commenters. If you'd like to, I'd like to have, when I call your name, please unmute your microphone, speak clearly, and state your name and address to the record, and then make any comments. Anybody in the public that would like to comment, please. Any comment from the public today? Okay, doesn't look like we have any. So we will go ahead. I'm sure there's no comments out there. Okay. There being no further testimony from the public, I close the public comment portion of the hearing. At this point, the board can decide to, let's see here. We can go ahead with our recommendations to proceed. Would anybody in the board like to make that recommendation? That's page 5 of our, or it's page 5 of my.
Madam President, I would move that we leave the comment period open for the receipt of written comments through the close of business on February 17, 2021. That barring any comments requiring further inquiry, we direct staff to prepare findings in an order consistent with the proceedings, including responses to all comments received through the public comment process. That the draft findings in order be written to effect transfer of portions of County Ditch 4 as petitioned and as recommended in the engineer's report. That the order note the conditions of transfer as set forth in statutes section 103E.812, and that we recess the hearing to the board's regular meeting on February 24, 2021 at 9 a.m. or by adjournment to an appropriate time on the board's agenda, at which meeting we will consider findings and an order for the transfer of portions of Ramsey County Ditch 4 to the city of Roseville.
Madam President, I'd second that, but I have a discussion comment.
Go ahead.
So I'm in favor of transferring this so that people are clear on that at first, but one of the things that bothers me about these transfers, the last time we did one, as I recall, was Forest Lake and portion of Ditch 4, Branch 1. And the district, one of the purposes for the district is for us to provide the stormwater conveyance system. And so we collect a tax for that. And when Forest Lake transferred that Branch 1, the district still taxed them, but Forest Lake City then became responsibility for the funding of it. And so they really ended up in Forest Lake, as I expect they will here in Roseville. Those citizens that were in that area ended up paying a tax to the city for stormwater conveyance maintenance of that system and to the district. While the district no longer has the responsibility of the maintenance, the district was collecting the tax that was used for that maintenance. And that seems to me to be a little unfair. And so I don't know how we straighten that out in the future, but I thought this would be a time to mention it because in Forest Lake's instance, for example, they paid the watershed tax, the city tax, and then the watershed came back and put an additional tax on it, a short one. So, but to me, that's a little unfair that there's no reciprocity. While we give up the responsibility of the maintenance, we don't give up the funding mechanism for the maintenance.
Okay. Any other
It's an
comments?
item for the future to look at, I suppose.
Yeah, Madam President, that does appear to be an item for the future to discuss. I would just note that to the extent that we no longer have the expenses associated, we will not, for example, have to repair this portion of Ditch 4, which would have been hugely expensive. Since we have no expenses, there is no tax recovering those expenses.
Madam President, I respectfully disagree with my colleague because maintenance for the system is collected by ad valorem taxes. Occasionally, there may be a full repair, which there's a special taxing district, but in this case, there's not. And most generally of our repairs that are done are done by maintenance of ad valorem taxes on it. And it's when you don't exercise that maintenance responsibility, you end up with these major repairs that require a special taxing district. So I would say, yes, we do still collect that tax.
President Reiner?
Go ahead.
I see Mr. Cold had a comment. I would share that before maybe you recognize him, that the district has other watershed responsibilities, of course, and we levy in some cases with the watershed management district, which is specific to a given system. And as Manager Waller noted, ad valorem. And of course, as the district moves through its maintenance of its facilities and its needs, certainly that budget can be adjusted. How fine a point we can put on the needs here, I would say there's certainly a reduction in the work that would need to be done by the district. How that equates to a definitive dollar value is rather a more challenging process.
Thank you. Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Madam President. The concern raised by Manager Waller is a valid one. I'll just note two things. One is in the resolution or in the motion that's currently before the board, there is a specific requirement that we incorporate the requirements, the municipal requirements of 103E812, which is one, most importantly, to provide at least as adequate of an outlet for drainage through the city, through the transferred portions as existed in the original construction of Ramsey County Ditch number 4. Secondly, this particular transfer may differ somewhat from the Forest Lake transfer in that downstream of these portions proposed to be transferred remains a significant portion of Ramsey County Ditch number 4 that is under the district's jurisdiction and still is required to be maintained by the district. So there will still be costs in order to secure and continue to provide an adequate outlet to the city of Roseville for these portions that are being transferred. Again, I think Manager Waller's concern is valid, And we want to be aware of that. I think the board has already considered that this may be some item for additional discussion moving forward. But I did want to highlight those two the major requirement of the adequacy of the outlet, and then second, just to highlight that the RCD4 under the district's jurisdiction will continue to provide an outlet for this stormwater system within the city.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion, a second on the table. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman? Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager
Yes.
Flannery? Motion passes. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will move on to items requiring board action. Nick?
President Preiner, the first Board of Managers' first items requiring action is the designation of the district's official depository and official newspaper. You'll find on page 21 of your packet, staff's memo. This is an annual designation that's required under the bylaws of the district. Staff have no proposed change to your current official depository, which is PMA Financial Network, nor the newspaper of record, which is the St. Paul Pioneer Press. There is a proposed motion on the bottom page 21.
Thank you. Like a motion, please?
Madam President, this is Manager Wagaman. I move to designate PMA Financial Network LLC administering the 4M Fund with U.S. Bank as a financial institution as the official depository and St. Paul Pioneer Press, the official newspaper of the Rice Creek Watershed District.
Second?
I'll second it.
Marcy, second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam President.
Yes.
We also have as a habit, and I think it's a very good practice, often publish the notices in the local newspapers that are, I realize, are only bi-weekly and are not as often as the St. Paul Pioneer Press Daily in our area. And although it isn't contained in our motion, I would hope that we continue that practice. I've received a lot of comments about that's been helpful over the years, you know, and we've added targeted to the communities. For example, if it was the Forest Lake area, we put it in the Forest Lake Press or the Forest Lake Times. If it was Arden Hills, Shoreview, we put it in their papers. And so if there was adequate time before the public hearings and such, so I'd hope we continue that practice.
Okay. Any further?
President Preiner,
Go ahead.
Manager Waller's point is a good one, and one that staff do exercise. We do publish in the local papers and go beyond where we can, as he's noted, if we can get it on a website or a posting board in other locations, even though it's outside of our obligation. It is certainly a positive practice for the citizens of the district. And one that we plan to continue. I do note that we have seen some of the smaller local papers unfortunately go out of business. I think that did happen in the Roseville case, but nonetheless, a good point and a practice that we do.
Thank you, Nick. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynant?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Preiner, yes. Motion passes. Okay. Nick?
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers, on January 13th of 2021 at your regular meeting, and after proper notice and availability of materials, you held a public hearing for the Artis Riet Whitewater Properties public drainage petition for Anoka Ramsey Judicial Ditch 1, Branch 2. We presented the engineer's report to the public, opened the meeting for public comment, and received comments into the record. The board left the comment period open until January 20th, 2021 at 4:30, the close of business, and further directed staff to prepare findings and order consistent with the proceedings and all comments that were submitted. You then recess public hearing to today's meeting of February 10th meeting and to consider the draft findings and order. On page 23 of your packet, you will see that draft findings and order. And I believe Mr. Kolb can lead the board through those materials and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Madam
Kolb.
President, thank
Yep.
you. Again, Nick pointed out this is at page 23 of your packet. A few things to highlight. Again, I'm assuming that the board has reviewed this already. On page, beginning at the bottom of page 1 of the resolution and continuing over onto page 2, we highlight the Department of Transportation's comments that were received and read into the record during the public hearing. Subsequent to the public hearing, there was some additional inquiry and discussions between the Department of Transportation, the City of Blaine, and the petitioners regarding the frontage road on Interstate 35W. It was determined that that frontage road area had been vacated to the city or transferred to the City of Blaine. And the petitioner has subsequently coordinated with the city as to its requirements. This doesn't change anything in terms of the petitioner's obligations to gather up all permits and other authorizations to perform the work that is proposed to be authorized by this resolution. But I wanted to highlight that because it represents just a slightly different set of facts than the board was aware of at the close of the public hearing. I will note also that on the second whereas paragraph on page 2, we do have a small typo and we can pen and ink that. On the third line, it says the city has coordinate. It should be the city has coordinated. We also, in the resolution, indicate specifically and by legal description, the property affected by this order. And that is in order to facilitate further actions to ensure that the various required declarations and statements of maintenance obligations and other agreements that are anticipated to be executed by the petitioner as the developer now of this property as part of the approval process for the development through the district is properly identified as against the property. And you'll see that in paragraph 4 of the actual order are the conditions to this approval. And again, it does discuss the acquisition or obtainment of all required permits, necessary rights of way, and flow easements from the regulatory entities, the district, the City of Blaine, and any owner of land that might be affected. It requires the execution and recording of a statement of maintenance obligations and agreements as approved by the district related to future maintenance and inspection costs for the modifications. And it requires execution and recording of a drainage utility easement with rights of entry as approved by the district for the benefit of the drainage system. And this will allow them and facilitate future actions by the drainage authority on the modified portion of the system. Subject to any questions you have, Madam President, it is staff's recommendation that the board consider and adopt the resolution as presented.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Kolb? Clarifications? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Manager Wynett. I move resolution number 2021-1, granting petition of Artist Reed Developer and Whitewater Property One LLC, property owner, to realign a portion of Anoka Ramsey Judicial Ditch, number 1, branch 2, and partially abandoning the drainage system remnant after realignment. Petition or the resolution can be found on page 23 to 25 in our packets. And would you like me to read the therefore into the record?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Managers direct the following actions. The petition of Artist REIT Developer and Whitewater Property 1 LLC, property owner to realign a portion of RCWD 1, Branch 2 for the purpose of the proposed office warehouse development of the northwest quadrant of I-35W and 85th Avenue Northeast in Blaine, and to abandon the remnant portion of the drainage system after realignment as indicated in the petition, and the engineer's report is granted, subject to the conditions adopted herein. Number 2, cost of proceedings be charged to the petitioner's bonds. Any deficiencies in the bond to cover the cost of the proceedings shall be paid by the petitioner prior to the release of this order. Number 3, upon payment of costs and completion of the modification, the drainage system record shall be amended to reflect the realignment and partial abandonment as petitioned. Number 4, the petitioner may proceed to make the drainage system modifications as petitioned upon release of this order, and provided that the petitioner has A, acquired or obtained all required permits and all necessary right-of-ways and flowage easements from the regulatory entities, including Minnesota Department of Transportation, the district and the city of Blaine, or owners of land to be affected by the drainage system modification. B, executed and recorded a statement of maintenance obligations and agreements as approved by the district related to future maintenance and inspection costs for the modification of the drainage system. And C, executed and recorded a drainage utility easement with rights of entry as approved by the district for the benefit of Anoka Ramsey Judicial Ditch 1. Number 5, the petitioner must proceed and finish the drainage system modifications as petitioned within 3 years of this order, or it's null and void.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, roll call. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. Good. Okay, Sir Hines, Nick? Or Kyle, I'm sorry.
Madam President, members of the board, we are continuing from our discussion at the January 27th board meeting regarding the City of Circle Pines proposed intake modification to the Golden Lake Iron Enhanced Sand Filter. In your packet, we have prepared, consistent with that, with the discussion at that previous board meeting, we have a draft grant agreement put together. And again, consistent with that discussion, the board advised staff or concurred with staff that the intake modification portion of their overall project could be considered for cost share funding, and that the pond dredging would not be considered for funding at this time. My understanding is that based on that discussion, the City Utility Commission has proceeded with the project, and they are engaging with Peterson Companies to begin the project in very short order. With that, we have an eligible cost of $63,533.90 related specifically to the intake modification and relocation. And the grant agreement has been drafted to award the city a grant of 50% of eligible project expenses not to exceed $31,766.95. In the packet, again, we have that grant agreement as well as the project plan set and the bid tabulation from the city. With that, open to any questions, but staff recommends approval.
Any questions for Kyle? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam President, this is Bradley. I move that we approve the proposed Rice Creek Watershed District grant agreement with the City of Circle Pines defraying the project costs, a grantee of up to $31,766.95. Anything more you need in there, Kyle?
That should get it.
That should do it. Need a second?
I'll second that.
We have a
Manager
motion.
Wagaman.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we're going to call the vote. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winan,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
and Manager Priner, yes. Motion passes. Okay, Kyle?
All right, Madam President, members of the board. You may recall a little while back, back in August, I think 2020, at a workshop, the district staff discussed with the board plans for, let's say, this biennium's allocation of Bowser's watershed-based implementation funding. We discussed utilizing those funds. Looks like we were allocated $93,042. We had discussed utilizing those funds to undertake a study looking at the backflow from Peltier Lake into Centerville Lake and effects that backflow, if it exists, may have on water quality and nutrient loading in Centerville Lake. This is kind of the next step, information we need to understand that comes out of the Peltier Centerville TMDL and implementation plan before we can move forward with any other major projects to improve Centerville Lake. It's kind of the last unknown, if you will. Since that time, we've been, working with the other agencies in the East Mississippi group that's been working together with that watershed-based implementation funding. That process has, the initial parts of that process have completed, and Bowser informed Rice Creek staff on February, that's not the right date, in January, late January, that our proposal was eligible for funding. We have completed a work plan and submitted that to Bowser, which was approved on February 2nd. So with that, I was hoping and expecting that we would have the actual grant agreement available by today's meeting. It is not currently available, has not been published and provided to us by Bowser staff yet. The need for our fairly quick action on this is that we would like to begin this project right away. Staff needs to prepare and distribute an RFP for the study to get a consultant on board. And more importantly, we need to begin field work as soon as possible in the spring so that we can get that spring snowmelt in their first year of data. So consequently, what I am asking the board to consider today, we have the work plan, which is Bowser approved in your packet behind my memo. It's a very simple, short work plan. And we are asking for the board to consider authorizing the administrator on advice of council to execute the 2021 Bowser Metro Watershed-based implementation funding grant agreement, again, once it's available and can be reviewed by district council. I expect it will be available this week based on communication with Bowser staff, and we cannot begin work on the RFP or any of that process until that is not only signed by Rice Creek, but also then turned into Bowser and signed by Bowser. And we'd prefer to not lose those 2 weeks at the early part of this year because that may impact when we can start the project. Again, those grant agreements are typically pretty boilerplate. We've seen them before on multiple projects. Not only that, we don't really have the opportunity to modify them either. So they kind of are what they are. The guts of the agreement are what lies in the work plan, which dictates what we are to do. With that, again, I have a proposed motion on my memo and ask for the board's consideration to allow Nick to execute that agreement once it's available on advice of council.
Okay, I'll have a motion, please.
Madam President, this is Bradley. I move to authorize the administrator on advice of council to execute the 2021 Bowser Metro Watershed-based implementation funding grant agreement, which includes a requirement for Rice Creek Watershed District to provide $10,000 local match through staff time devoted to completion of the project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
Kyle, would you remind me again, this is the watershed at, well, our watershed, Rice Creek used to get a portion of funds for these projects, and now this East Mississippi watershed group, is that in addition to money that we as Rice Creek get, or is this it?
Manager Wynan. So originally, this pot of funding, if you will, at Bowser, originally, we're going back to maybe 2014 or so. They had a targeted watershed demonstration program, which Rice Creek was successful. That was part of our $3 million grant for the Long Lake Targeted Watershed Demonstration Project. Bowser ran a couple cycles of that program, and it was changed then, and originally 2 years ago was the watershed-based funding pilot program. That funding was distributed by county during that pilot. So we got a portion of money that came to us through entities in Washington County, entities in Ramsey County. Each county, the watershed districts, the county, the cities, everyone kind of had their own group to decide what the funding was to be used for. After that pilot, Bowser had a lot of feedback from those of us involved in receiving the money, Bowser staff, and they made some changes. Now the implementation of that has been through like kind of larger watershed areas. I think they're Huck 8 size watersheds. Works really great outstate in the one watershed, one base, or one watershed, one plan areas. Within the metro, we all have our own little watershed districts, and so we're combined into larger groups. I think there's 7 watersheds in the East Mississippi Huck group that we're a part of. Through that process, working with that Huck group, our allocation is $93,000 and change. That is all we'll be getting. There's no other funding coming to Rice Creek through this program or any other as a part of this allocation. So,
Madam President.
Okay, so this is it. Yep.
Okay.
Madam President.
Yes, go ahead.
Kyle, you're just too nice in that explanation. I would summarize it a little more like the staff at Rice Creek was so good and so competitive that there was a lot of unhappiness in the metropolitan area at the amount of money the staff was able to competitively win with their projects. And that was in the 14 area that Kyle's talking about. So then the next thing they came along with was we're going to do this by counties. And we got a pretty good chunk of money that way for each county. And then they decided that we're going to give more money to outstate, not enough in-state. We got into this East Metro, West Metro, whatever it is. The summary of this story is our dollars went from millions to 93,000.
That is correct. We did object to it at the time, but that.
Yes, yeah, we did.
Fell on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Wynan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes, motion passes. Okay, next thing is Matt, I believe.
Madam Chair, members of the board, beginning on page 48 of your packet, there's a memo on contract for lake monitoring services in Ramsey County. This is our 6th year of having a contract with Ramsey County to monitor lakes, so this is somewhat routine, but it does require board approval. So prior to 2016, Ramsey County undertook this lake monitoring effort with their own budget, but they made the decision in 2016 to start trying to recoup their costs from local partners, watershed districts. So we've had a contract with them since that time to monitor all of the major lakes in Ramsey County, like White Bear, Turtle Lake, Johanna. The costs for this year are identical to the costs last year and looking back to 2016, they really haven't changed all that much. So costs have been consistent. The data are very valuable. As I mentioned, these are high-profile Ramsey County lakes. We have a really long data set going back into the early 1980s, sometimes late 1970s for these lakes. The data have been really valuable in managing these lakes and acquiring grants. As Manager Waller mentioned, we've been successful in getting grants in the past, and part of that is having a good data set to rely on. Not much else to say about it. There is a motion at the bottom of page 48 to approve the contract, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Matt?
Madam Chair, this is Manager Winan. I move to approve the 2021 Lake Monitoring Service Agreement between Rice Creek Watershed District and Ramsey County for the amount not to exceed $46,907.32, and authorize you, the board president, to execute the contract.
Madam President, Bradley would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Madam President,
Yes.
Matthew, you've been doing outstanding work at this monitoring, and I hope you continue. And it's a monitoring, as he's pointed out earlier, is so important for the data when the staff goes to compete with other watershed districts and soil water conservation districts. And so it's a necessity to make sure those records are continuous. Thank you for your work.
Madam President, Bradley here. The Bald Eagle Area Association considers Matt Koshin to be our rock star.
What do you get for that, Mike?
Just this accolade.
Oh, okay. All right, so we have motion and a second. Further discussion? We'll call the vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Winan.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Preiner, yes. Motion passes. And we'll continue to Beth, I believe.
Here I am. I'm having some, there we go. Good morning. How is everyone?
Good.
Good. How about you?
All right. Let me get there. All right. Good morning, Board. President Preiner, thank you for letting me come to talk with you again today. This is just a continuation of the conversation that we started on Monday about the CAC. You provided direction to present the slate with the addition or with the inclusion of our newest applicant, Megan Forbes from Ramsey County. And that is the slate that you see before you in your memo. So we've continued a quick follow-up to the conversation Monday. We've had some good conversations. We're continuing to try to recruit those last two seats. We've got a lead on someone in Anoka County now. We've kind of had more no's than we would like in Anoka County, but we're excited about the possibility of someone joining us from there. And we think we're rounding the bend in Washington County as well. So for now, the slate you have gets you to 10 members. Ramsey County will be fully seated.
Good.
So any questions for me?
Questions for Beth? Now I'll have a motion. Page 58 of our packet.
Madam President, this is Bradley. I move that we approve the staff supplied slate for the Citizens Advisory Committee, and that we recognize the great service these people provide us.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Manager Wagaman, I believe, a second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll call the vote. Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Winan.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Preiner, yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Beth, for all the hard work.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Nick.
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers, on page 60 of your packet is our annual review of the Metro shooting and trophy settlements. the board had decided that it would do this in February and then actually take a formal vote regarding the remoteness of the liability associated with those settlements. The Smith Partners memo is included in the packet as well on page 62, and Lewis, of course, can speak to that if you have questions. In the previous years, most recently on February 12th of 2020, the board action was to proceed on the second option that you see on page 60 there, that the liability is remote. Happy to entertain any questions. Otherwise, the board should consider the various options and have discussion or motion accordingly.
Thank you. Well, let's start with a motion and then we'll have discussion.
Madam President, this is Manager Wagaman. I would move that the Board of Managers finds the triggering of the potential contingent future liability to be remote, but nevertheless concludes that it should be referenced in the 2020 financial report as follows. Or as modified in the auditor's judgment. In settlements agreements approved in 2005, the district committed that when development occurs on 2 tracts that then owned by the Metro Shooting Center and Trost, the application of the district wetland rules will not have the result of affording the owner for the Metro Shooting parcel fewer than 100 contiguous upland acres for development, and the owner of the Trost parcel no fewer than 45 such acres. An additional wetland replacement is required to allow for consolidation of the stated acreage. The district will bear the cost of that replacement. The district is unable either to determine at this time the likelihood of this potential future contingent liability or to estimate the district expense if and when the liability should arise.
Bradley will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. I just want to make note that Manager Hockey had sent out an email that Mr. Trost has passed away, the original. So I don't know where this falls in as it moves through. I'm sure there's new owners and all that by now. So other than that, any other comments?
Madam President, doesn't the city of Blaine own the Trost property now?
President Preiner?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
And I note that, and certainly Lewis can correct me if I'm wrong, but the settlements are tied to the parcels, so they follow through to the subsequent owners.
That's correct, yeah.
John, do we know who owns the Metro Shooting parcel?
Yeah, they still own it themselves. It's a corporation and it's owned by,
Mr. Rick Wilder.
Mr. Rick Wilder and his wife. Yeah. So.
In the past, I've suggested investigating whether or not a reasonable buyout of this obligation would be in our best interest. I don't know if the passing of Trost provides that opportunity or not.
Well, Trost has been gone for some years.
Well, I just got the message from Barbara Hockey.
Yeah, Barbara Hockey just sent us an obituary.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think the transfer of property to Blaine was some years ago.
Oh, that could be. Okay.
That maybe Trost is deceased recently, but I have a question here so that I understand. In the years past, when we voted on the remote possibility, there wasn't any notation put in the annual report. Is that what we're doing now? We're starting to put this in the auditors, or is it going to be just what's the new change here? Any change at all?
I suspect that this is the financial report by the auditor.
Yes.
So Louis, there's no change in what we did in the years before that, correct?
I believe we did it the same last year, didn't we? Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This is the motion we've made each year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check, that's all. All right, that's all. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? Waller?
Yes.
Wynant?
Yes.
Bradley?
Yes.
Wagaman?
Yes.
And Priner, yes, motion passes. Okay, Nick?
Yes, Board of Managers, on January 13th at its, your board meeting, staff had pointed out that Rice Creek Watershed District Fund 10 would likely exceed the 2020 budgeted amount. And we had noted our conversations with Redpath and Company as well as the board treasurer. As predicted, the districts did exceed that budgeted amount by roughly $8,000 there. You can see the number on page 66 of your packet. This overrun is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic matters. And if those wouldn't have occurred, we would not have seen the overrun. With that, there are dollars in the district's fund balance, specifically to Fund 10. And this motion on the bottom of page 66 looks for you to increase your budget, recognizing the availability of those funds. It's an increase of $8,000 to cover the overage and place those in what we call the miscellaneous account, because those COVID costs are spread throughout Fund 10.
And Madam President, I would just back up what Nick said, that the accounting firm Redpath did say that this was the proper way to account for it, and we are following their direction.
Would you like to make the motion on 66 then, Steve?
Sure, I'd be happy to. We move to increase the 2020 Fund 10 budget from $433,956 to $441,956, and recognize the usage of fund balance in the 2020 Fund 10 miscellaneous account.
And then this is Bradley. I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a comment, Madam Chair, that this is pretty amazing that only between $600 and $700 a month in addition was spent because of COVID. So,
Yes, very efficient.
very efficient.
Any other comments, questions? If not, we'll call the vote. Manager Waller?
Yes.
Manager Winan?
Yes.
Manager Bradley?
Yes.
Manager Wagaman?
Yes.
And Manager Priner, yes, motion passes. Okay. Nick, I believe.
Yes, President Priner, Board of Managers, the next item on the agenda is the Houston Engineering Task Order 2103 for hosting, purchase, and migration to what is known as MS Forefront, which is a database. You did have some discussion on Monday's workshop regarding this. And I want to make clear that to the board that there are two databases that the district has, one of which is what we call the ditch database, or the drainage portal materials. And that is specifically written to reflect 103E and our statutory obligations there. The other database, which was came about under Doug Thomas back in the day and has expanded, if you will, to cover not only the regulatory program, but our cost share program, and so on. It's aging, and these things do require routine maintenance. I know a lot of you have cell phones, and when I look at it in the morning, there's often a little prompt for me to debug and update those apps. These types of things require constant annual correction or adjustment. So the district did look at other options. I believe Ashley did mention that Laserfish is a service or a piece of software that we have that does have some of this functionality. It is by subscription. And it's per user, so the cost of that subscription would be substantial with all the staff utilizing this database. And I'll note that a lot of this software, and Laserfish in particular, is more of a national or a very broad blanket, if you will, in a way of handling materials data. MS Forefront, as the name originally implied, has to do with more local matters at a state and a more specific need. But when we looked at it originally a number of years ago, we didn't advance the issue under Phil, but here that software has been updated yet again to be configurable, if you will, which allows staff along with Houston, but to manipulate it a little more readily for the needs that the district might have. And here we're finding that we would have great functionality for the management of our facilities. And I believe some other staff spoke to those positive aspects at the workshop. So with that, I'll note that because we do have numerous programs that utilize it, if you engage in the task order, we will spread the cost of it across the various funds, different programs that are using it. And I did send email that the agreement within the packet that follows the task order is, I'll say, illustrative, and we would ask that you authorize the signing of the agreement on the advice of counsel. So it's not the definitive document, if you will. With that, I'm happy to entertain any questions or look for a motion. I can, if I might, President Preiner, I do have. There we go. I think I wrote this up just to try and capture the authorization to enter into a supporting agreement on the advice of counsel. So that would be my suggested motion.
We'll ask for a motion and then we can have discussion later.
Madam President, I move Bradley to approve and authorize the board president to sign Houston Engineering, Inc. Order 2021-003, hosting, purchase, and migration to MS4 front database, and authorize the administrator to enter into a supporting agreement on advice of counsel.
I'll second that.
We have a motion second. Any further discussion?
Nick, I want to let you know that Ben did an excellent job presenting this information on Monday. And kudos again to the work that went into getting a Green Corps member, especially in this day of COVID.
Thank you.
I guess the only question I would have is just so it's in the record. Who owns this information? Once it's migrated over, it's still a property of the Watershed, I believe.
That would be correct.
Okay. And if something should happen where we discontinue the contract, how do we do that legally?
Madam President,
Yes.
So if you do decide to move away from utilizing MS Forefront, what you would need to do is just simply make a request to Houston to provide the data, and we would output all of the data that is stored out on the cloud. And as Brian had mentioned during the workshop, that goes into a series of spreadsheet documents that you can utilize for a different database product than in the future. But and as Nick indicated, you own the data, so all you need to do is make the request and you will have that information in a different format.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Not, we'll call the. Oh, go
Madam
ahead.
President, thank you for asking that question. I think that's important. It's one of the problems we had many, many years ago when we first came on the board.
That's what I was.
Yeah, because, and we've seen that in previous vendors, have kept information that really belonged, the public had paid for, and it wasn't properly transferred, in my opinion. So even though if we discontinue the engineering services with Houston Engineering and discontinued their data services, we would have the information provided to us, is what I understand your questions.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And Madam President, during the workshop, I had also inquired whether or not if we were to choose a different engineering firm in the future, that we would be able to continue on separately with this, and it was advised that we could.
Thank you.
President Preiner,
Go ahead.
noting the nature of the discussion, I'll just offer what you may already know. Houston Engineering and Rice Creek have a closeout procedure. And so upon finishing projects or specific components of work, that information is transferred to the district in a tidy packet of material. So it doesn't reside, if you will, over at Houston, and we have to go ask for it. It comes to us upon completion and resides in the district's computer chips.
Okay, well, that's good for
Madam-
everybody to
And
refresh.
those are backed up. Those are backed up, so.
Okay,
Madam President?
yes,
What Nick just described is the result of our work about this issue many, many years ago when we first started here, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that. So it's important to refresh us on that. Thank you, Nick.
okay, we can move ahead. We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winan,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
Manager Priner, yes, motion passes. Okay, thank you. Red Path, that'd be Steve.
Madam President, I move to approve the check register dated February 10th, 2021 in the amount of $84,311.31 prepared by Red Path and Company.
Bradley seconds that.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Now we'll call the vote. Manager Waller,
Yes.
Manager Winan,
Yes.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
Manager Wagaman,
Yes.
Manager Priner, yes, motion passes. Okay, discussion information, District Engineer. Any comments or questions for Chris?
Madam President. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Chris. I was going to say on your chart, by the way, I always appreciate this chart that shows the comparison of the work done and the budget done. You seem to be well ahead on JD2 branch 1 and 2. I mean, way ahead. Anything unusual going on there?
Apologies, having trouble with the mute button there. Manager Bradley, that is a very good point to bring up. So one thing about that project is that it took a lot less effort than what we would anticipate that we would need to do in terms of inspection and staking and even the construction management side of things. So that isn't really a reflection of the quality or value of work provided by Houston Engineering as much as the quality and value provided by district staff and getting that work initiated, completed. The only remaining items on that project to complete for work construction is that portion of branch 2. And specifically, we need to still complete some tree clearing and a bit of excavation along that portion of the drainage system. Unless the level of effort that is needed by the district to help them in managing that part changes, I don't anticipate that there is a huge amount of effort needed by Houston Engineering to help out with that part, other than, again, some kind of follow-up work, maybe a little bit of staking, that sort of thing on that part of it. But again, the staff did a really good job on that project to push it forward toward completion.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'll note one other thing on here. We do have one of our task orders we've indicated as being completed on here, and that's JD5 repair report. And I just wanted to note that that repair report is completed. The staff is beginning to utilize it now to implement maintenance along that system. Again, that's a tile system in Washington County. We provided in our repair report a prioritization of maintenance tasks to be completed at various portions of that system. And so district staff is working with contractors to begin to knock out portions of that maintenance work per that prioritization.
Madam Chair, Manager Bradley, could you tell me what the project name was that you had questions about?
Sure, that was JD2 branch 1 and 2. It's the second line on the
JD,
graph.
okay, I see it. Thank you.
Anything else on this? Any questions for Chris?
No.
Okay, then we'll go to the administrative updates. Nick?
Yes, President Preiner, Board of Managers, I have two items I'd like to share with you. One being in regards to the district's revenue. As you know, the counties collect the district's levied collection and provide it to the district. That typically falls, as you know, into two property tax payment periods, first and second half. Although, as you might imagine, if someone forgets or what have you, that funds are always kind of sprinkling in. And there is a final settlement collection at the end of the year. I'm sorry, I'm getting ready to share my screen here, and that's throwing me off. Here we go. Let me find it. But we've advanced our little graph here, and you'll see the addition of the final settlement collection, which brings us to a total of 99.65% of the levied amount for the year. So we're in excellent standing with the collections that the district expected to see. And that is a change from our January 11th workshop where we had consensus to monitor our spending on those three funds. I think it was 2 in 60 and 1 in 90. So with that, I think we're safe to proceed with the budget as you approved it for the given year until we run into this next collection point.
Good, thank you.
Yeah. And then the second item, you'll recall the unfortunate damage to our vehicles, whether that was intended theft or what have you, as well as the break into the garage. Staff are working through those items. The two vehicles, the gray pickup truck, it had the topper broken into, that's been repaired, and the tools that were taken replaced. That is now safely secured off-site in a storage fenced secure storage area, which is readily accessible to the staff that use it. The white truck and what we call Old Blue are in for repair. The insurance company has honored the repair or will cover the repair. Of course, we have a deductible of $500, which they combined for the vehicles, which was kind of a nice surprise. While they're at the repair shop, of course, if there's additional things that are unfolding and more cost, we'll have to circle back with the insurance company and see where we're at. But right now it looks positive. We are also creating a list of all the materials that we're taking from our garage and working with the insurance company to be reimbursed. Some of those, as you might imagine, we're going to need right away this spring, so we're working out those details. And that is my update.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions for Nick?
Just very unfortunate, another time sink for you and the staff.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
I've never been happier though about being wrong about the collections, so that's great news.
that's all
That's
good
great
news.
news
Yep.
about the,
Congratulations.
let's hope I'm equally wrong about next year.
Yes, it may have a lagging effect, so.
So
Thank you.
as long as we follow it, we're good. Doing our. Okay, manager update. Anybody have updates? Manager Waller.
Madam President, I attended the Washington County Consortium meeting on Wednesday and last Wednesday, I guess it was. Miss Angie Hong had an announcement. You know, she's the East Metro communications person, and her office is down at the Washington Conservation District down there in Oakdale, I believe it is, and she's holding a workshop later this month. And I don't remember exactly what day it is. I thought it was 25 or 26, somewhere around there. You could contact her at the and find out. The workshop is about shoreland or shoreline restorations. So that might be of some interest to the board members. And then I was also liaison member. And President Preiner attended the meeting also. Basically, we discussed on Monday what was discussed at the liaison meeting, and that was the urban grants and such. And there was a good discussion there at various points. It wasn't just a group think session. There's actually some serious debate over things on some of those projects, and I think they came out well.
Okay, Manager Wynett.
Thank you. All I'd say is, Nick, I appreciate the staff updates. And Teresa, if you're in the room, kudos to you for the presentation you did on Monday. You are in charge, aren't you?
Yes. It's a good thing somebody is, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Manager Bradley.
I have nothing to add.
Manager Wagaman.
I have nothing to add either.
And all I can say is, yes, our CAC meeting was very good. I just listened in, and they do very good discussions. Kudos to, I think, Beth and, you know, for sure, Kyle. I think you bring them a lot of good questions and comments that we get discussed properly. So that's very good. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Manager Waller.
Yes.
Manager Wynant.
Yes.
Manager Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Wagaman.
Yes.
And Manager Preiner, yes. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you later.
everyone.
See you later. Bye-bye.